Hello, moviegoers! Welcome to another episode of CritiCarter, the show where I turn you into a cinephile. Before we begin this review, we'd just like to make a small statement that our hearts do go out to the families of the victims involved in last night's shooting tragedy in Aurora, Colorado. All the information's out there if you want to find it. That's all that I'd like to say about the subject. As you all can see, this week I don't have my usual comic book movie co-host, but instead I do have Mr. Gabe Russo, the trustworthy film student from UNCSA. And last night we saw The Dark Knight Rises. In fact, we actually saw the whole Nolan Batman trilogy, which, 9 hours in the movie theater, that is quite the endurance test. Directed by Christopher Nolan.
Written by Jonathan and Christopher Nolan.
Starring Christian Bale.
Tom Hardy.
Anne Hathaway.
Michael Caine. That spur of the moment, I couldn't stop myself.
Yeah, no, it's good. We'll leave it in. Gary Oldman, Joseph Gordon-Levitt,
Morgan Freeman, and Marion Cotillard.
After 8 long years of a forced exile as Batman, the Caped Crusader is forced to return to deal with 2 new threats: a small-time jewel thief known as Selina Kyle, and the international terrorist Bale. Well, it's been 7 long years since Batman Begins first hit the screens. We have been able to keep Chris Nolan on board the whole time, which I think good.
Always a good sign.
Yeah,
always a good sign.
Because anytime you have these long franchises that take place over a long period of time, you always get new directors because everybody's going off to different projects. And
like just, Twilight or.
We're talking about good movies, Gabe. Okay.
Sorry.
Well,
I was using that as a bad example to compare it to a good example.
Okay. This is Batman. Okay. Just think about Batman.
Exactly.
And I think, I'll leave the comparisons to the other films, to the very end, but I do think that Chris Nolan is at the top of his game with this movie. It was a large undertaking, but he comes through very well. And I especially liked the new additions to the cast with this movie. You got Joseph Gordon-Levitt.
Your boy.
Yeah, I make no qualms about this. I got a huge man crush on Joseph Gordon-Levitt. However, I think this film is going to be his big meal ticket. Like, this cements him as being able to do anything that he wants. He's done the comedic, he's done the dramatic, and now this proves he can do the action stuff. If I had any reservations about Looper later this year, they're gone now. I'm so ready for. I've been ready for Looper, and now I'm more ready for Looper, which I didn't know was possible.
Good old JGL.
Good old JGL. Yes, indeed. And then, of course, you got Mr. Tom Hardy. Both of whom came from working with Nolan on Inception 2 years ago. Yeah. Who's a very, for the first time, you've got Batman coming up with a foe that is not. He is a mental challenge, but he's also a physical challenge. The first time you see Bane and Batman fight in this movie, he just wails on him. It's horrible to watch almost, because it's like, this is Batman and he's getting the crap beat out of him. You don't want to see Batman lose like that.
What did you think about it?
Well, there was a lot going on. The very first trailer from way back when, everybody was complaining like, oh, I can't really understand what he's saying. And he does have a big mask over his face for the entire film, so you are going to get a bit of an odd voice. And probably in response to all the complaints that they got, there seems to have been a lot of, recutting and, and mixing in the edit bay sound-wise. So that, when the later trailers and then the movie came out, he did sound a lot different than he did originally. There were a couple line deliveries that I took issue with more than his voice itself, just because they sounded a little too over the top. But when you have a character like this who thinks that he basically gets to own the world, I guess it makes sense, that he would be crazy in an eloquent fashion, the way that he tends to be.
Right.
I also would like to point out that while some people have taken Nolan to task for his female characters, I really enjoyed his interpretation of Catwoman. I think Anne Hathaway as Catwoman, although no one ever calls her Catwoman in this movie, she's just Selina Kyle, and the newspapers will say she's, the cat, in quotation marks, as they want to do. I would put her above Michelle Pfeiffer. I would put her above Julie Newmar. I would put her above Eartha Kitt. And I would sure as hell put her above. She's so terrible I can't even remember her name. Halle Berry. I'd put her above Halle Berry. Because Halle Berry wasn't even playing the same character. She was Patience Phillips. She wasn't Selina Kyle. So that's a whole other problem we can not talk about right now, because we're talking about The Dark Knight Rises, which was a good movie. Some other things that I really enjoyed: the spectacle. You know, it seemed like going from Batman Begins to Dark Knight, the movie built. You know, and again with The Dark Knight Rises, it built further. So the movies just get progressively bigger and bigger.
I think it might have built a little too much, though. I think it built bigger than it could hold without getting too convoluted.
I will agree with Gabe on that just a little bit. The movie clocks in at about 2 hours 45, which, especially after watching the first two movies in a theater, it gets a little intense. And there were a few scenes here and there that I think they could have cut out. Like there's a lot of flashbacks to scenes that we've seen in the other movies. You know, not even just new flashbacks to us, but stuff that we've seen and remember from the other movies. And maybe, obviously, you know, not everybody sees this movie right after seeing the other two movies. So, you know, some people might need those to be, you know, refreshed by to have the full impact.
I think that's what it was for us, was we had literally just seen all those images, you know, and then to see them again just felt like hammering it, you know, into your head.
And the trilogy as a whole really came together nicely. Yeah. I thought, like, there's a lot of stuff in Dark Knight Rises that really goes all the way back to Batman Begins. And, you know, it just really comes back to the whole "why do we fall" lesson that he gets from his father after going down into the well.
That was nice. It is very circular. Like, it comes back. Yeah. It comes all.
Oh, and let's not forget the score. You know, Hans Zimmer and James Newton Howard.
It's interesting with this because we listened. You know, we saw the first two movies,
right,
and then we saw the third one right after, and I have to say that it kind of keeps that chant throughout the whole movie.
Yeah,
that one chant.
There's a chant that's associated with Bane, and which I'm sure everybody's heard in the trailers by now. It's Basara, Basara, Eshi, Eshi, Basara, Basara, Eshi, Eshi. I think it's supposed to be like Moroccan or something. I think that's what they figured out.
Yeah.
And you hear that a lot over the course of the film.
Yeah.
It's initially introduced.
It's literally in about every moment that's underscored has literally that same beat, just in a different instrument or interpretation. Right. But I thought it was almost too like it was like the only piece of music in the whole movie. It felt like they just took that theme and just used it in a million different ways again and again.
The score was wonderful. No. There were certain other July superhero film releases that I could mention right now that had a terrible score. But again, we're talking about The Dark Knight Rises right now, so we're going to move on. Like we said a few minutes ago, the movie gets a little long. It is a little overcomplicated. It could have been tightened up, shortened a little bit. There's also a good chunk of the movie that relates to a certain character who, just from the outset, knows that Batman is Bruce Wayne. Now, Gabe, I know, will disagree with me on this, because we had a very extensive conversation about it immediately following the film. But there's not any scene of this character figuring out the connection between Batman and Bruce Wayne. And any character that this one in particular is connected with knows that Batman is Bruce Wayne either. So that was a little bit too much of a jump for me to make personally.
He gives that great though. What it ends up being is the character gives a beautiful like soliloquy though as to how it is that
which you could take completely at face value and not relate to this issue at hand.
I don't know. I thought it tied in nicely, and I thought it used that actor really well, because I thought that was kind of his scene. Like that was his big.
You do realize you keep saying his, so you just narrowed the cast down by half in terms of who this character is, right?
Well, that doesn't tell too much. The movie's more guys than it is girls anyway.
Right.
So it could be anybody.
And but while we're talking about certain characters, Catwoman, or Selena Kyle, since she's not really Catwoman by name, she has sort of a sidekick in this. Would you call an unofficial sidekick? There's a blonde girl who runs around with Selena Kyle for the duration of her scenes. According to the credits, her name is Jen. She's played by Juno Temple. When Juno Temple was cast in this film, the word got out that she was being cast as Holly Robinson, who is a character from the comics who, yes, is Catwoman's sidekick and at one point put on Catwoman costume herself. If you're going to have a little blonde girl run around with Catwoman, why not call her Holly Robinson? Any thoughts on this?
I don't know.
I don't usually go into the adaptation aspect, but this bugged me a little.
Right. And you know what's funny? Because you know what I thought.
Right.
I thought that Catwomen were lesbians. Because there's a scene,
there you go.
They're always together, and they don't ever, they never establish, like, what the relationship is, and there's a scene where she's kind of like, I don't know, like, hugging up on her, and I was like, oh, so they're lesbians.
Yes, because, two people of the same gender can't possibly show affection towards each other.
But it was
without there being something going on, right?
It just... No,
obviously.
It's just that I didn't understand. Well, I haven't read the comic,
Right.
and I don't know, the way in my mind I just thought when I saw that specific moment, I was like, oh, so there's some kind of.
You saw a little more chemistry than I did, I guess.
Well, I guess I just didn't know who she was because I didn't know because I guess she wasn't her sister.
Yeah, and my problem really, besides the name issue, is that they never really take a second to explain who she is.
Right. No, it's
like
just
I don't
this
even
girl
remember her
following
name
her.
being said.
No.
It's just Selena Kyle has this blonde girl running around with her. Like she's in the process of training to be a thief.
And she trusts her like she knows her.
Like
so
she's in with their little criminal schemes and whatnot.
Right. I don't know. Yeah, it was that. But once, I won't say anything.
There are just a few small problems that I had with the movie. Overall, I would have to give it 4.5 out of 5 non-Hispanic Banes. Bane in the comics is Hispanic. Obviously, Tom Hardy, who plays him, is not. He doesn't play him as a Hispanic character in the movie.
He is, but is he like Moroccan or Arabic of some sort? Because he's
like in the movie.
Yeah. Is it? Well,
I would assume they never the whole thing. Like they keep his background of being born in a prison. They keep that from the comic. But the location of this prison in the movie is never really specified. They just say it's in a more ancient part of the world, and if the chant is in fact Moroccan, like I personally believe it to be, based on the information that I have, I would say maybe North Africa could be a possibility as to his origin. Yeah. And the way that certain other characters to tie in to Bane dress at various points. So that could be some Arabic North African connection going on. Like I said, I didn't write this, so I wouldn't speculate too much. But if you ask me, that's what I would say. How about you, Gabe?
I'm right there with you. I would go a nice solid 4 non-Hispanic Banes out of 5.
Okay. So, and you say better or worse than Dark Knight?
I say, having never seen them fully before
until yesterday,
I think Dark Knight still stands as the tallest point of the series.
See, I will say this just barely edges out Dark Knight.
It's very close.
Say this one is very close. They're very close. Well, I would personally say this one.
What would you guys give Dark Knight?
I give that one a 4.5 out of 5.
Yeah, we'll switch for Dark Knight.
Yeah.
Oh. I'll say Dark Knight gets a 4. This one gets a 4.5, and we switch. So, you can check out my last review of The Amazing Spider-Man, which I may or may not have alluded to earlier in this review, up over there. And see that?
Yes.
Boom. Next week I'll be reviewing the new film The Watch, starring Vince Vaughn and Richard Ayoade, and I want to say Jonah Hill, isn't it? Ben Stiller, maybe?
Yeah, Jonah Hill.
Just a bunch of guys. I'll be reviewing that next week, and that'll be up over there. Pretty fancy, isn't it?
Yes.
Yeah, this little box popping up all over the place. Oh, and then for this, just this, because I feel so very strongly about this movie, we got a special bonus spoiler video. Boom! Right there. Boom. Just click this. Spoiler. We're going to talk spoilers, okay? Don't click this until after you've seen the movie, because I'm going to say some stuff, and it's going to scare you. Okay? It's going to scare you if you haven't seen the movie. Be sure to like and favorite this video if you enjoyed watching it. Subscribe to my channel if you haven't already. Gabe, you got anything you want to plug?
No, just I really enjoy
any of that.
Well, I mean, just the shout out to Batman, I guess, because I've never seen just
shout out to Batman.
Shout out to Batman.
Yeah. And remember, you can find me on Facebook, Twitter, and Tumblr. Always CritiCarter for your viewing pleasure. And be sure to check out CritiCarter.com for all the nice little indie films that I don't have time to review here.
Fade to black.